Gerry O'Connor, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Thanks for taking the time. It's great to catch up with another member of the notorious and famed C1 crew.
Absolutely.
Seems like I have a lot of friends from C1.
Yeah. No, it's a good group of folks. I still get together with them occasionally. So
That's terrific. We talk about where are you today and what are you up to?
yeah. So right now I'm in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, which is just near St. Paul. We have a home here that we're living 6 months of the year in the summer, and
Yeah.
spend time here near my family. This is Minnesota is where I grew up. So my mom and my sisters are nearby, and fortunately, my wife was kind enough to join me. So we're here in Minnesota 6 months.
Yeah, it's always a variable. The wives joining, right? At this age, So I'm also. I was mentioning before we started recording. I'm myself coming in from my summer headquarters in Denver. That's why the atmosphere is a little bit different.
Yep.
So I myself am also. I guess what are we? We're not snowbirding, but we're doing some sort of birding here.
It feels like the reverse. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And then, so you're retired now. So what keeps you busy?
Yeah, so July of 24, I retired from Bechtel, and I was in Australia at the time, and the opportunity that was next was something similar to what I was already doing. So I decided to retire and come back home. At the time, my parents or my mom is my only living parent, and she's 86 now, and she was needing to transition to independent living. So the first year I was retired, we actually spent most of our time helping our parents transition out of their homes into independent living. And then we visited and traveled to see my wife's mom as well quite a bit. She's still living in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. So just helping family out quite a bit since we've left. But I do try to golf. I try to get in a game of golf. My wife and I enjoy that together. In fact, I'm
Oh, good.
golfing
Yeah.
on Friday with Pat Moran, so one of my
Oh, there
company
you
mates.
go.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
here in St. Paul. So, yep. And then we travel. And I'm also volunteering at the Veterans Hospital. So I spend in the 6 months I'm in Houston, I go into the VA hospital and help them where I can, and mostly manual labor, to be honest.
Sure. Sure.
And then which I like. It's you don't have to think too hard. They just do what people tell you to do. And then here I'm doing the same thing in Minneapolis. So enjoying the volunteer aspect and like I
How do
said,
you do that? Because I think that's a tremendous thing, and a lot of us are signing up for VA and using VA now, and it's great. The
yeah.
volunteers are terrific. What, do you just walk in and say you'd like to volunteer?
Yeah, in my case, I went to their website, found the process, identified the people
Yeah.
that bring folks on board, and they go through a bunch of training, and they give you a government ID, and it's and go through all the safety stuff that they
Yeah.
want you to learn. And yeah, it's not hard, and there's lots of different opportunities, and it can be 4 hours a week, it can be every day. They're just thirsty for volunteers, so they really appreciate those that come in.
It's in this day and age of technology and in all of the superb ways that you can interact with screens and all that. It actually is really great. You walk into a VA center, and there's a couple of people there that say hello. So
That's right. Yeah,
they're
my
volunteering.
interactions with veterans isn't that significant.
Right.
The interaction is more with the staff and
Yeah.
the doctors and the nurses and so on. But nonetheless, I feel it makes you feel good, like you're still
Yeah.
providing a bit of a service.
Now, you mentioned in your profile, I had a chance to see that you have a little project. And there's even some classmates involved about visiting ballparks. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so this started back in 2007, about the time I was retiring from the Army. Kevin Lauder Young and John Corsi and Rick Keller and I decided we would like to try to get to all the ballparks. And we started with Los Angeles because Kevin Lauder Young was such a Dodgers fan. So we met in California. I happened to be living there at the time.
Yeah.
And that was our first putting our feet in the water. And since then, we've we've tried to meet every single summer at a different park if possible. Unfortunately, well, or fortunately, we end up in Ohio quite a bit because they're big Cleveland Indians fans, and
Right.
we're going to meet this year again in Cleveland. We were down in spring training in Florida this year as well, watching the Minnesota Twins play, which is my team, and then last year we went to Arizona spring training. So yeah, we're making the rounds. We got a ways to go. We're not even halfway there, but we're
Yeah,
still
yeah.
young.
How many total parks are there? Because I've met a few people who have the same
Yeah,
project. They
it's
want
in
to
the
visit all the parks.
20s. I honestly don't know the exact number, but
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, several, and
Sure.
but everywhere they're located, it's a lot of fun. We
Oh
did
yeah.
Chicago one year and did both, both teams in Chicago on the same weekend, so we planned it that way, and we did New York City the same way. We got to see the Yankees and Mets the same weekend, so we're
My wife and I,
trying to
my
be
wife and I
efficient.
reconnected with some long lost relatives who were here in Denver watching a Rockies game. So they were
That's
doing the same thing. They were
good for you.
hitting all the ballpark.
Fun.
It's a
Yep,
great way
it's a
to
great
see
chance
time.
to get together.
Yeah, yeah. That's terrific. And how you guys pick? It sounds like there's a lot of you guys are fans as well, so you steer it
It,
that way.
Yeah, it's usually one of our teams that,
Yeah.
our childhood teams that we go and try to watch them in the away park. So,
Got it.
um, yeah,
Right.
this year we're heading back to Cleveland to watch the Twins play the Indians. So,
Yeah. Okay. So you're picking up
yeah,
the different teams based on the schedules.
yeah,
How fun is that? That's
yeah.
great. Good for you guys. What? So from Minnesota originally. Talk about where you're from and what it was like growing up there.
Yeah, so I'm in the metropolitan area of Minneapolis, St. Paul right now, but
Yeah.
I grew up about 100 miles west of here in a small town called Renville, Minnesota. There's about 1,400 people there, and the high school was so small that it ended up pairing with the next town over in order
Right.
to keep it efficient. I guess we had about 72 people in my class, so
Yeah.
needless to say, it was a very small town, rural upbringing. My parents lived there their whole life until they moved to a lake in Minnesota later in life, but my father was the banker in town. We only had, and my mom was a school teacher that eventually became a mom to three kids that came like within 3 or 4 years. So she was quite busy. So
I
yeah,
think it says
that was
everything about the size of the town when you say my dad was the banker.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they answered the phone, the bank. It's yeah. He ended up selling the bank. It was a family bank for several generations. I don't know if it had anything to do with me not coming back home,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but you never know. But anyway, he retired and sold the bank and then moved on to a lake in Minnesota. So
Well, that's that. And the nice thing about a high school class of 74 is you have to have been very active in basically everything. You were the basketball team, the football team,
yeah,
what all did you
yeah.
get involved in?
So I was on football team and I wrestled.
Okay.
And yeah, you're right. I was in choir. I was in band. It was whatever. Whatever.
Right.
Unfortunately, I wasn't good at everything, so I didn't get to do everything. But no, it was pretty average wrestler, and but great experiences in high school. I will say it. Being from such a small town, I felt a little unprepared when I got to West Point because the level of education seemed not to be on par with my classmates,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was quite a shock going from all A's and B's, student council. Everybody's telling you you're doing so well, and then you show up at West Point and you see the talent left and right, and you realize you know C minuses. I was struggling to get C minuses there my first semester, so
Yeah. Yeah.
it was quite interesting, and I was dug myself a pretty good hole to get out of the rest of the time I was there. So
And so coming from a small town like that, what interested you in West Point in the first place?
you know, I had no interest in the academies or the army, and my dad was drafted in the '60s, and he served in Germany
Hmm.
at Warner Barracks in Bamberg, and he was an infantryman mortarman and enlisted, and he absolutely loved it. And he ended up joining the Army band or the division band, and had such a great experience, great friends, got to go to all the fests in Germany and traveled Europe a lot. And but he had to come home and be the banker. So
Right.
he he encouraged me to give it a look. And back then you probably remember this as well. It wasn't real popular to go into the Army.
Not at
So
all.
yeah, so I was hesitant, and I told Dad that I'll apply, I'll see how it goes, and I threw my hat in the ring for all three academies, and immediately got rejected by Navy and Air Force for I wore glasses at the
Hmm.
time, and they wouldn't take me, or so they said. That's why they wouldn't take me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I got put on the waiting list for Army, and I said, Dad, it's May of our senior year in high school. I'd like to see the place before I make a commitment. And we went out and looked at it, and it was impressive, as we all know. And um, but after seeing it, I told Dad, this, if it doesn't work out, it's got a 2-year commitment with no strings attached, and I might come home. And
Yeah.
he said, well, give it a shot, see what you think. And then, like I said, I was on the waiting list. So on May 7th, I got notified that I was accepted, and so real late. So I didn't have a lot of time to prep, But anyway, it all worked out really. Probably today the best decision of my life.
Yeah.
It changed all of us. It put us all in a different azimuth, and no regrets at all.
So you came in on our. Did you have any conception of what our day would be like, or you just kind of kidded cold like the
I,
rest,
I
like
think
many of us?
so. You see the pictures of the haircuts and
Yeah.
the man in the red sash, and so you're just going to get screamed at, and my dad told me, you just got, they're going to break you mentally, right?
Yeah.
That's their purpose. There's a weeding out process that's going to take place. It happens in every organization. In fact,
Yeah.
it happens in basic training in the Army that he went through, and he said, just hang with it, do your best, keep your head down, stay out of trouble. And that's what I did. I found myself to be, from a drill and ceremonies and discipline cadet, I didn't really struggle so much.
Mhm.
In fact, looking back on it now, I didn't have a single hour on the area, no room tours, nothing. So I
You
did so much
didn't. Good for
better
you.
on the cadet side of things than I did on the academic side of things at first. So
Yeah. Now you went to D3 as a plebe.
yes, so
How was that over
D3.
there in the front end of the Third Regiment?
That was shocking. We come back from reorganization week, and
Yeah.
this company was, their motto was Delta Heat,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and I think it was for the purpose of hazing the beanheads, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so I got my fair share of hazing when when I was a plebe. But nonetheless, it was a great group of guys. That process brings you closer, and
Yeah. Yeah.
real good friends there. I roomed with I don't know, Steve Hendershot was my first roommate,
Hmm.
and he was Mr. Basketball from Indiana.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
ended up leaving after 2 years because he blew his knee out playing basketball, and but he was my first roommate, and then my second roommate was Roger Wylup, who I think now lives in the New York City area.
Uh-huh.
So
Those of us who are in the tougher companies tend to keep in touch with our plebe friends a little bit, right? Because there was a bit of a bonding. I know that is actually how I know the C1 group, because uh, Jake
yeah,
Brown was in my company as a plebe, and
yeah,
we kept in touch.
yeah. I
So
had Bruce Tweet. Bruce Tweet was the only guy that went to my, the scrambled company back to C1.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So the academics hit hard. When did you feel like you kind of stabilized that? Because you ended up going
yeah,
into engineering, which is
yeah.
that's
So
not a
first semester,
simple.
like I
Yeah.
said, I was struggling in all of the subjects. I think, like I said, my average was a C minus, and the second semester. From the second semester on, I began digging myself out of the hole. I ended up, I studied engineering management there, and once I got into the more math-oriented classes, I think I did better and climbed my way up into the top half of the class. But
Yeah.
still, it felt like it was a constant. Yeah, and looking back on it today, I think about how focused you had to be on academics there.
Yeah.
I I didn't participate in a lot at West Point, like the extracurricular things. You know, I did the mandatory intramurals and drill and ceremonies and so on, but I didn't really have time in my mind, anyways. These are personal choices, I guess, but to really do much more than just try to get out of that hole I dug myself. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was challenging.
Well, this podcast is a celebration of the marching cadet, right? The football
Yeah.
players, they get their plaques, and the baseball players are, everybody gets their, the rugby players running around and having their events, but this is the marching cadets podcast.
That's right.
I like
That's us.
yourself was
That's
all
us.
that playing plenty.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Jerry, you marched to the D1 school. They'll never take that away from you.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
but so C1 was a good group. Did you, now you mentioned in your profile that you guys got out a little bit and were able to socialize a bit. So obviously you dug out of the hole academically enough to be able to enjoy a little bit with the C1 crew.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, we did. We spent a good bit of time in New York City together. You know, I met my future wife when I was there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So she was attending her father's 25th class reunion in Cullum Hall, and he was the class of 1959, and she lost her dad when she was very young. So he wasn't there, but the whole family came back for the reunion.
Uh-huh.
And it turns out they were over at Cullen Hall, and Pete Dawkins was in that class, and
Yeah.
he came up to the young ladies and said, you know, you shouldn't be here. You should be at Eisenhower Hall. And so her and her sister went to Eisenhower Hall, and I was there after a football game. It was a Saturday night, and Jailbait was playing. I don't know if you remember Jailbait, but they were playing on the stage, and these two pretty girls walk in, and you know, we saw them, and my classmates all met them, and I asked my wife, my current wife now, Amy, if she'd like to walk over and listen to the music, you know, and you know, it was loud already, so it was sort of an interesting way of separating her from the rest. And yeah, we chatted for a while, and she ended up giving me a ride back to C1 barracks.
Okay.
And then about 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail that said Gerry O'Connor, USCC, United States Corps of Cadets in West Point, New York. That was it. And it said, thanks for being such a nice person. And anyway, we started corresponding, and then our first date was Army Navy of our cow year.
Okay.
So, and then from that point on, we got engaged ring weekend, and ended up getting married 3 weeks after graduation. So,
And was she going to school nearby, or was she? Sounds like
no,
she had to
she's
travel
from
up there to
Richmond,
come see you.
Richmond, Virginia, and,
Okay,
and she was going to school in Richmond at the time.
Okay.
So we, yeah, and so once I met her, a lot of my time was spent driving down I-95 to get to Richmond and back before I was too late. And so we did spend a bit of time together in New York, but generally speaking, we tried to get together as often as we could. So.
Yeah. Good for you. See, the power of a letter was just
Right.
addressed to USCC.
Yeah, that's right.
But she knew, right? She knew enough to say that'd get it there.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Great. Engineering management. So there's multiple. You could do an HBA side, the MSc side. So were you more on the math science engineering side for that?
Yes, I
branch?
was. So yeah, and I actually don't know. I don't remember now why. I think it was more the management side that I was interested in. And I wasn't drawn to like a hardcore civil engineering degree or mechanical, but you know, we all had to take those types of classes. And it was a mechanical track, if you will. So it was, I guess it was ABIT accredited back then. They were just going through that when we were going through it. So I think that's how I landed in that major.
Okay. And so that math and science sounds like that came a little more naturally to you. And so
Yeah.
academics, you climbed your way to the top half of the class. And then you decided on the engineers. Talk about that.
Well, there's a good story. So CTLT,
Yeah.
I wanted to be an infantryman. I always thought that was what we were there for, right? And
Yeah.
so so I went CTLT infantry, and it was actually a good experience for many reasons. But I ended up going to Germany for CTLT to Third Infantry Division, First of the 15th Infantry, and I got assigned to Bravo Company, which was Audie Murphy's company during
Yeah.
World War II. And I show up there, and the brigade commander's name is Robert Foley, who's a Medal of Honor winner, just like Audie Murphy was, but in a different war.
Yeah.
And he assigned me to that company, and I became a platoon leader. They didn't have a platoon leader, so I was the platoon leader for, I think it was 5 weeks. 4 of those weeks, we were in the field, and our job was to guard the division TOC. And so we all had foxholes around the perimeter of the TOC, and it was
Right.
cold and wet all the time. So I came back to West Point after that, and I said, I don't think I'm going to be an infantryman anymore.
Yeah.
It wasn't that type of mission wasn't exciting for me. And I thought, well, maybe engineering will present some different
I've
options. So
tried it. I've got the measure of it. I'm going engineers.
that's it. Yeah, and then I went engineer. So
And what was it about that versus artillery or some of the other options?
I think it was, yeah, I think it had a lot to do with school and the math, science, what I was studying, and
Okay.
um, I don't know. I guess a lot of people will say that you want to go into demolitions, and you want to do bridges, and or you want to do construction, heavy combat construction, or but my career took me down the combat engineer role. So I really, until I went back to get a master's, I was really focused on supporting infantry and armored battalions. So it
Fair
was
enough. Yeah.
it was the infantryman with the toolbox, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. A critical role. A critical
yeah,
role.
yeah.
So rolling up, you were engaged as you headed toward graduation. What did you guys wait, or were you one of those? Did you get married right away?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
So 21st of June, we got married 3 weeks after graduation, which
Okay.
will make it 40 years here in about a week. So, yeah,
Congratulations.
things
Excellent.
are well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done. Did you do it at school, or did you go down to Richmond and get married?
No, we've got married in Richmond.
Okay.
Yeah. It was interesting when we did branch night. My wife and I, she was going to school, and she still had a couple of years left when we graduated. So what I told her is we'll go to Fort Riley, and you can finish at Kansas State University. They had our interior design program there
Mhm.
for her, and I thought, oh, this is going to be slick. And we did one of those straw poll deals, and Fort Riley was available when it got down to me,
Yeah.
in the class, easy enough. And I didn't think anybody wanted to go to Fort Riley, so thought it, when I went into branch night, a couple of our classmates decided they wanted to go to Fort Riley together. So it went out early,
Oh
and
no.
so I'm sitting there at branch night, and after promising my wife I'm going to help her finish her degree in Kansas, and
Right.
we picked Germany. So we
Ah.
ended up going to Germany on our first assignment with
Okay.
the 7th Engineer Brigade. So
Well, it's hard when you're in the middle of branch night figuring out where there's an interior design degree proximate to a base. So you got to give you. I hope she. Well, if you're here married 4 years later, she gave you some slack on that.
yeah, well, we spent 3 years there. We had our first son. That was still the Cold War days. That was probably the best assignment we've had. It was on the
Yeah.
French border in Germany, and but after that, we went back to the advanced course at Leonard Wood, and then I got Fort Riley. So I was
You did
able
get
to
okay.
get back to Fort Riley for her to finish her degree, which she did, and
Okay. Okay.
yeah, then while there, I got to go to Desert Shield and Desert Storm. So
So now she was a daughter of a grad. Did that help? That had to help a bit with her understanding how mercurial the Army could be on assignments and all the rest.
Yeah, certainly with her mom. I think her mom, it helped. Her mom
Yeah.
could talk to her about it and explain, um, how you don't get to make all the decisions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that helped. But yeah, she's been a great sport.
Yeah. Yeah. So Fort Riley after that, and a continued success because you say in your profile you ended up commanding an engineer battalion.
Yeah, so I ended up going to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and came back as a company commander. And um,
So
then
did
from
you go
there, I went
from
to
Riley over there?
yeah.
Okay.
I was the S1. I was adjutant, and
Hmm.
from there I came back. I took command after the war in the desert, counting tools and stuff, and
There
then
you go. An
yeah,
inventory to remember.
that's right. And after company command, I got to go to advanced civil schooling. So I went to the University of Illinois for 2 years, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a program I think the Corps of Engineers has. So you have to pay the Corps back with time.
Yeah.
So I went to Illinois, studied structural engineering, and this time I decided I would try the hard engineering track for my master's, and
Hmm.
did study civil engineering with structural engineering, which was great. But then when I got to the Corps of Engineers in Baltimore, they had me do soil remediation. So I didn't get to use my degree so much.
Yeah.
Spent all my time burning dirt and hiring contractors
Yeah. Yeah.
to do
Now, did
remediation.
that getting that degree, did that kind of change your trajectory from more toward the Corps of Engineers and those types of assignments, or how did that work?
It did for that one assignment. So that was the
Okay.
payback. So I had to spend 3 years in the Baltimore district, 1 year out in the field doing remediation, as I said, and then in the home office in Baltimore, where I worked in the construction. That's where I got contracting experience.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about the only thing that stood out to companies on my resume when I got out of the service, which helped me a lot afterwards.
Yeah.
But
You had a good run afterwards, so that was a good thing. So where was
yeah, and
your
then
head back then? You, you kind of did time up supporting the infantry. And then you went to Baltimore. We're doing contracting and the remediation work, and so you had a broad range of experiences. Kind of where was your head on what you wanted to do after that?
I still wanted just to be a combat engineer.
So wanted to be a combat engineer. Okay.
Yeah, and I kept wanting to go back to troops. So at this
Okay.
point, I really fell in love with the leadership and really spending time with soldiers and the camaraderie of units. And
Yeah.
so, you know, we left we left Baltimore and went to CGSC, uh, and then from there I went over to Fort Stewart to be a battalion XO of two different battalions. One of them I went to Kosovo
Yeah.
um, with Reinhard Koenig was there. A good time over there, and then came home to be the Brigade S3 of an engineer brigade who was doing planning for the Iraq invasion. This
Yeah.
was Third Infantry Division. So was at Fort Stewart for my major years, or while I was a major.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I left there and went to NTC to be the XO trainer at the National Training Center
Really?
and for engineers for a couple of years. And then I got pulled into battalion commander early, brought over to Germany, back to Germany, to be the 82nd Engineer Battalion commander, and was given a task force in Iraq with tanks and Bradleys and my engineer companies, and we did what everybody did over there: security missions, trying to get the government on their feet,
Yeah.
training National Guard,
What
all
years
of those
were
things.
those? Because there was
It was 2003 to four, so
okay early.
we ripped with 4ID. So 4ID and 3ID more or less did the overthrow, the war itself, and
Uh-huh.
then my First Infantry Division came in after them. So we were early days. About
Yeah.
the first couple months were good. They still liked us. They still, we still, they hadn't really gathered the terrorists and all of the bad people hadn't come together.
Sure.
But the last 10 months we were there was tough. It was really combat operations, security operations. And I was in north of Baghdad in a town called Bakuba.
Hmm.
So Baghdad, Bakuba, and Tikrit kind of make up the Sunni Triangle. So it was a tough area. I didn't have the city of Bakuba, but I had all the area around Bakuba, and we
Right.
did patrols and all the typical things that are done in Iraq. So it was a great experience. Probably the most rewarding professional experience of my life. However, it was also scary.
Sure.
It was also a tough year for me and my family. So
Particularly, you were there as it turned, if that is the phrase, right? As it turned from the quiet right afterward to things starting to get more active. So that must
yeah,
have
that's
been.
right. Yeah,
What was
yeah, that was.
what was your guys' perspective as you watched that change?
Well, it's all about force protection in those situations, right? Especially when IED is your biggest threat. And we went unprepared. We were in. I left from Germany, and we were cutting steel plates
Hmm.
to put on the side of our Humvees and sandbags on our floorboards, and we just weren't ready for that type of threat. And so when you get there, you start to realize this is dangerous, and we're not really prepared to take care of ourselves. And so eventually, the Army modernized their fleet of Humvees. They modernized
Hmm.
the logistics and everything, and then it became much different, and it was then it was more opportunity to go find intelligence and go find the people that were causing us harm, and so it was a constant improvement of force protection over time. But you never really get there with that type of enemy. I can
Right.
remember toward the end of my time there, it was we were getting rocketed and mortared, on our forward operating base quite often, and
Yeah.
that's a helpless feeling. that's
Sure.
Yeah. No, so it was but like I said, you did everything you could to take care of each other. I mean, that's what it was all about, and you made everybody as prepared as you possibly could be for the missions. So
Yeah. So roughly 2 years there, or 18 months. How long were you in theater?
I was in Iraq for 14 months.
14 months.
Yeah, I ended up commanding. We came back to Germany and reorganized.
Hmm.
So we folded up our flag and became a standard troops battalion, an STB for the 173rd out of Italy. So that type of unit has one engineer company, an MI company, a signal company, and so on. And so it was a matter of all my soldiers leaving for the most part, and
Yep.
then bringing in different MOSs to create that new unit.
And what was the
So
purpose of a standard troops battalion? For those of
it,
us who didn't serve, and those of us who served said, "Oh boy, this is basic stuff."
oh yeah, it was a catch-all. It was for. I honestly can't tell you why, but it was for the light infantry, the striker
Yeah.
organizations. They combined intelligence, signal, and engineers into one unit.
Huh.
And instead of having a battalion anymore, you had a company. So it
Yeah. Yeah.
was. I'm sure there was efficiency in for that reason. So
So you had to convert over to that new. Was that an experiment or was that a TOE
no, this is a TOE.
standard thing?
That was a major change.
Okay.
And now my battalion is back at Fort Riley as the commander. The 82nd is back at Fort Riley,
Back and forth rally.
unflagged. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, one
So
interesting thing that I thought
yeah,
I'd tell you about
sure.
is,
Yeah.
my dad was a mortarman that went to Germany as and joined the band, for the
Right.
first or for the Third Infantry Division. Well, he was at Warner Barracks in Bamberg, and so when I got assigned to Bamberg, I was at Warner Barracks in Bamberg. So he came over and saw all the places that he he had
Yeah, yeah.
lived and served and practiced and this and that. So it was kind of interesting,
Oh,
but
that must have been fun.
small
Yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah. And you looked up and you saw where he'd scribbled his name as a as
Probably.
on the. Uh, so
Yeah.
coming out of Iraq, combat experience, you spent time in NTC, which is always rounds out your experience. What did they do with you then? What was the next step?
Yeah, so I went back to NTC again to be the
You
STB trainer for a year, and then then I retired from the Army. So
Okay.
2007, started interviewing for jobs in California. I got an offer from Fluor, which is
Yeah.
a company that does engineering, procurement, and construction on large projects. Um, they offered me a role in LA, and I started looking around at houses, and it was way too expensive to live
Right.
there. So they changed the offer to same job, but in Houston, Texas,
Okay.
Sugarland, Texas. So I
Sure.
ended up retiring out of California and moving to Sugarland, where we spent, I think 16 years. And I worked for Fluor for 3 years as a contracts manager first. That's how I was saying I
Yeah.
got some experience in the Corps of Engineers. They like that. So I was writing contracts for Fluor for about a year, and then I became fast track project manager and sent me to Chicago to work on a refinery modernization up there.
So what kind of
So
contract? Those of us who don't, we know of Fluor and some of these larger engineering companies. What kind of contracts? Like, what was the circumstance you were facing when you were writing contracts? 'Cause that's
yeah, so in this case with Fluor, it was I was in the energy business,
yeah.
so we were working for BP. They had one of the Rockefeller refineries up in Chicago that was getting old and needed to be modernized, and
Mhm.
they asked us to come in and engineer the change, buy all the equipment, and then come in and construct it. So that's generally what EPC companies do. My experience ever since I left the Army has been on the energy side. I
Okay.
spent 3 years with Fluor, and then I went over to Bechtel back in Houston, where I started as a contracts manager there too, moved into commercial management and then project management with Fluor. I mean, with Bechtel.
Yeah.
Um, there I was we were building LNG facilities for Chevron and Woodside in Australia. So I got the opportunity to go to Australia
Yeah.
after 4 years in Houston with them on the design phase, and went to Australia to Perth for 2 years, and then I went to the job site where the construction was happening. In Australia, it's in the middle of nowhere, so they have construction camps. So I lived in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
camp, and I was responsible for project controls. I was a commercial manager, so project controls and scheduling and finance and
Oh wow.
contracts and procurement. So it was a really good experience, and you know
Neat.
in a great place. So I
And
spent
and
yeah
a,
sorry
and a chance to live in Australia for all told. How many years in Australia did you live
yeah.
in?
So the
And
first time I was there 4 years,
4 years.
two with my wife in Perth, and then two by myself out at the construction camp. They
Yeah.
put you on a 8 and 2 schedule, so you spend 8 weeks working, and then you get 2 weeks off. So we
Yeah.
could meet anywhere in the world, or I could come back to Houston, and then the second time I was in Karatha for 2 years. So
Okay.
yeah, so six years total
Yeah.
in Australia. Yeah.
Oh wow. Good for you. And how does that impact your desire to travel now?
It,
Does
well,
it?
we I think it motivated us, right? I
Is that right?
think we got comfortable in foreign lands, right? And
Yeah.
Australia is not that foreign, but we got to see Asia,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
so many countries in Asia that we would have never gone to had we lived in the United States probably the whole time. Um, and it really made us want to show our kids, what it's like to live in Asia, and so
Hmm.
they visited us. I have a son and a daughter. My son was born in Germany on my first assignment,
Yeah.
1989, and my daughter was born in Illinois when I was going to grad school in '94. So,
Okay.
and we still do these multi-generation vacations. Like in a week, we're going to meet in Nova Scotia, Canada. I get the Airbnb, and they have to get there, and
Yeah.
so we spend a lot of good time together. Still
And
traveling.
they're in Austin, right? The two of them.
Yep, both kids are in Austin. My son works for Amazon Robotics, and my
Okay.
daughter works for a communication company
Okay.
in Austin. So they're
He's
both
building
both
the
married.
robots. He's building the robots. Good. At least we got a
Yeah,
guy that we know that's building the robots. We've got
yeah,
someone on the inside.
he's on the IT side of the robots. So
Good. Tell him to keep his finger on the red button so we know who to call. Say no, stop the robots.
that, yeah,
That's great. And
yeah.
so 90. So so these kids, they never lived in Australia then, or they lived there for the
No,
2 years.
no, no.
No.
They visited us. So when we left Australia, the first time my daughter was going to UT in Austin,
Got it.
and my son was working in Houston.
By that time
Um,
they'd moved on. Yeah, yeah,
that's
that's
right.
good. I'd
Yeah.
say because the traveling for those of us who are retired or are retiring, it's interesting the philosophy of people who maybe haven't been able to travel as much, but those of us who served and served abroad or lived abroad, it just kind of has a different flavor, I guess, to it. So I was curious your all's thoughts. So it sounds like you just feel comfortable doing it, so you keep doing these
Yeah.
vacations.
It's one of our favorite things to do, and
Yeah,
yeah, I really feel like that at this stage of life, you've got a go phase, you got a slow go phase, and you got a no go phase
yeah,
coming. So we're doing our best to get out and see the world, and you know, I need to spend more time in Minnesota just to see the things I didn't see growing up.
yeah.
So we're gonna do some driving trips and such. So
Well, we're going to change our class motto from "Courage Never Quits" to "Courage Never No Go." We just have our walkers
just keep going.
going around, right? That's our scheme.
That's it. Good. Yeah, I hope so.
So, what was the most interesting thing you took from the Army to your commercial work? Like, what was the thing that you said, you know what, this is the one thing my civilian counterparts didn't get a chance to experience? Was there anything that was really super useful?
I think I, I really think that the leadership part of our development, all the way back to West Point, and certainly the time in the Army, is valuable, and it's experience unequaled on the civilian side. I I think it's I got told several times that was probably the best trait that I brought. And on paper it doesn't hire real well, right?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to put. Everybody thinks they're a great leader. The CEOs of companies all think they're great leaders, right? And they probably are, but they don't have that level, that same experience. And I think that's the biggest difference that I noticed. I think
Yeah.
dealing with people, dealing with common everyday HR issues came quite easy to me. It Whereas others, that was hard work. And it's very emotional for some. So for us, I think we've learned, what it takes to move people in the right direction. And others, I think, come by it, but don't come by it quite as well or quite as easily.
Yeah. I think that's a good insight. Just because you've been made a vice president doesn't mean you're a leader, right?
That's right. That's right. And
Right.
and I found out real quick on the commercial side of things in outside of the Army is if you're not making your company lots of money, you're probably not making a lot of progress in your career.
Yeah.
Um, and
Right.
and that and that was tough because you spend 21 years in the Army spending the government's money training for war and not really thinking about budgets too much. And then you get out and you realize, just being an operator, just doing operations for a company isn't the guys that are advancing as fast. It's
Right.
really the people making the deals. It's the people finding the new work.
Or those contracts that are a little thinner on cost and put more money in the bottom line, those types of things, right? So
Efficiency. Yeah,
it
for
looks like that tour to Baltimore really helped you out.
sure. Yeah, believe it or not, I think legally, you learn why we have contracts. I think that was the biggest learning point. And the government
Yeah,
does contracting quite well, um, almost a little bit too well. But
sure.
it's a great place to learn contracts. So
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
so after Australia, you came back, and then did you finish out in Houston, or how did that work? How did that work? How close
yeah.
to
So we
retirement was the Australia work coming to a close?
yeah. So we finished in July of 24 and came right back to Houston. We had downsized out of
Yeah.
Sugarland back into the city of Houston, where
All
we
right.
just have a townhouse there now. Where so we were, we had a lock and leave situation in Houston, and
Yeah.
so we came back and immediately started helping my mom sell her house, move everything out, move into independent living,
Yeah.
and then decided to purchase a house up here as well. So we've got lock and leave situations in both locations. So
That's great.
yeah,
Yeah. Good for you.
yeah,
Good for you. And then so you've been so you have a good amount of time you can enjoy some of the retired life, helping family. Obviously, you get to know
yeah.
any aspirations or things you think you might get involved in, or
Yeah,
the VA
I'm
stuff.
working. Yeah, I started a consulting company
Yeah.
and was asked to come back and do mentoring and leadership development for my last company. So um, I will probably be doing that a bit for the next couple of years.
Okay.
But beyond that, I'm hoping just to enjoy retirement and travel and golf and all of those things. So
Yeah. Well, when it comes to golf, there's a lot of classmates who will certainly enjoy going out with you. So you've
yeah,
got no shortage of golfing partners.
yeah,
Maybe
looking forward to it.
maybe you're a ballpark group could get a little tour going.
Yeah,
Uh,
generally when we meet for the baseball games, we have one day of golf as well. So and
Golf and baseball.
yeah,
You may have you've made the cran grape of
yeah,
of classmate experiences.
it's great.
That's
None
terrific.
of us are any good, but that's why we golf, right? I mean,
You know,
we think we're going to get better.
yeah, right. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Um, that's terrific. And so with the family in Austin nearby, you're going to remain Texas based, I imagine. So Texas
Yeah,
Central.
yeah. Our daughter and her wife are moving to Albuquerque in
Okay.
July. So my son and his wife are going to stay in Austin. So
Yeah.
honestly, we've been thinking a lot about this. We're kind of waiting for the right time, but eventually, I think we'll land in one place. So we just haven't decided when and where. But
Yeah.
winters up here are pretty cold, so I don't know if we'll decide on Minnesota or not. We'll see.
Right. 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 Makes sense. Um, and I think that people underestimate how dynamic the retirement years are with parental support. Your kids
Yeah,
moving around, grandkids start to then define, in addition, I know several classmates are making moves based on grandchild proximity. So
absolutely.
for that
Yeah,
reason, Charleston seems to be populating quite
they,
nicely at this point. So,
yeah. No, we
yeah,
don't have grandchildren yet. We're hopeful, but
yeah,
yeah, and again, we're not in a rush to make a decision. We're just
yeah.
gonna wait and see.
You have the benefit of flexibility, which is great. So
Hopefully, yeah, yep.
terrific. So what stories have we not touched upon?
Well,
What
I,
others?
I think we've touched most of them. Yeah, I covered most of my life experience, I think.
Great. Yeah, no, it's been good. It's been a good ride. And so when we see you at the reunion, I recognize that time and dates the
Yep,
podcast, but
yep, we definitely
good.
will be heading to New York. So my classmates are all getting together the day before the reunion for a dinner up in New York City on Wednesday. So
Yeah, that's
and
great.
then we'll
RD
transition
and
out.
Jake and
That's right.
Will Duke and all you guys.
Yeah,
That's a good
that's
group.
right.
That's great. And if we run into each other and we're talking and we see some young ladies that are looking bored, we can send them to Eisenhower Hall,
There
and
you
the
go.
cycle can repeat.
That's right.
We're
There you
not
go.
nearly as wise as Pete Dawkins, but we're wise enough to send them to where the cadets are.
Oh, that was life changing for sure.
We'll always thank the general for that. That's
That's
what.
right. That's for sure.
Jerry, thanks so much for the time. It's been great catching up, and it sounds like you got a lot of great stuff coming up for you in your retirement.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and thank you for what you do for our class. This is significant time that you're putting into it, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Courage Never Quits podcast, where any member of the class of 1986 who is willing to tell their story will be a guest. To get the word out and stay up to date on the latest episodes, hit the like and subscribe button. With over 900 living graduates, we have a lot of stories to tell, and you don't want to miss any of them. We'll see you in the next episode.